It had rained the night before, and the concrete on my driveway was still slick. I was walking down the slanted part to grab the morning paper, just like I've done every day for 20 years. I took a step with my right leg, and my knee did not hurt. It just vanished. It gave out completely without a single second of warning. I went down hard on the concrete, scraping my hands and twisting my shoulder. Linda heard the impact from the kitchen window and came running out looking terrified. I sat there on the wet driveway, looking at my right leg and feeling a cold, heavy dread in my stomach. I was 73 years old, and I could not trust my own legs to hold my own body weight. For months before that fall, I had been dealing with a deep, constant ache right inside that right knee. I handled it the way most men my age handle things. I ignored it until I could not. Then I started buying expensive joint supplements. I was taking pills every morning. I was wrapping it in ice at night. I was spending more time sitting in my recliner, thinking that if I just rested the joint, it would somehow heal itself. That fall in the driveway proved me completely wrong. Resting was not healing my knee. Resting was destroying the machinery that was supposed to protect it. My daughter Megan is an occupational therapist, and she does not let me get away with stubbornness. She came over that Sunday and watched me heavily favor my left leg as I walked to the kitchen. She sat me down and explained that the knee is really just a dumb hinge. It only bends and straightens. The pain I was feeling inside the joint was just an alarm bell going off because the heavy lifting muscles around it had stopped doing their job. She brought over a research paper she had printed out from some trials in Boston and Tokyo. I read the numbers twice. It tracked thousands of adults over 50 who had serious chronic knee pain. It showed that they reduced their daily pain by more than 60% in just 8 weeks without a single injection or surgery. They did it strictly by rebuilding the muscle armor around the joint. I threw my expensive joint pills in the trash that afternoon. I realized that my 30 years working on warehouse concrete had not destroyed my knees. My retirement and my sitting had put my leg muscles to sleep. Over the next few weeks, I learned 5 specific movements that actually rebuild the stability of the knee from the ground up. I started doing them right on the living room rug. I'm going to walk you through all 5 of them right now. The very last one on this list completely changed how I walk downstairs today, and it is the exact reason I do not fear my own driveway anymore. The absolute first thing I had to fix was the connection between my brain and my thigh. When you have knee pain, your brain actually shuts down the big quadriceps muscle on the front of your leg to try and protect the joint from moving. That muscle goes dead. I had to wake it back up. I sat flat on the floor with my legs straight out in front of me. I looked at my right thigh and I just tried to flex it to push the back of my knee down flat against the rug. I did not move my leg. I just tightened the muscle and held it for 5 seconds. The first few times I tried it, nothing happened. My leg just trembled. A guy I used to work with named Frank was having the same knee buckling issues, and he told me he could not even feel his thigh muscle the first week he tried this. You just have to keep sending the signal. I did 10 of those flexes at a time. After a few days, that muscle finally woke up and started firing hard. Once that thigh was actually listening to me, I had to make it do some real work. I stayed right there, sitting on the floor with my legs out. I flexed that thigh muscle again, locking the knee completely straight. Then I slowly lifted my whole straight leg about a foot up into the air. I held it for 1 solid second and lowered it back down slow. I used to try lifting my leg, but I would always let the knee bend a little bit. That was a massive mistake. When you let the knee bend, you take the pressure off the exact part of the thigh muscle that you are trying to rebuild. Keeping it locked straight forces the muscle to carry the whole load. I did 10 of those slow lifts on each leg. But I needed to get that thigh strong enough to actually absorb the shock of walking. I thought I would need to go to a gym and use heavy machines for that. I was wrong. I took a thick blanket from the sofa and rolled it up into a tight cylinder. I stayed on the floor and put that rolled blanket right under my bad knee. My knee was bent resting over the blanket. Then I tightened my thigh and straightened the lower half of my leg up into the air, keeping the back of my knee pressed hard into that blanket the whole time. It lifted my heel off the floor but kept my knee supported. This forces the thigh to work through the specific angle where it is usually the weakest in older folks. I did it incredibly slow. 2 seconds up and 2 seconds down. Doing it this way builds strength right where the knee needs it without actually putting any painful weight on the joint itself. I was feeling better doing those three things, but my knee still felt a little shaky when I stood up from a deep chair. That is when Megan pointed out the part I was completely ignoring. The knee is caught in the middle between the ankle and the hip. If the muscles on the back of your leg are weak, the knee takes all the damage. I had to build up my hamstrings and my glutes. I laid flat on my back on the rug with both knees bent and my feet flat on the floor. I squeezed the back of my legs and lifted my hips straight up toward the ceiling until my body made a straight line from my shoulders to my knees. I held it for 3 seconds and then came down. My son Derek came over one afternoon and saw me doing this. He laughed and said it looked like I was doing gymnastics. I told him to try it. He is 41 and works hard in HVAC, but he could not hold his hips up for 10 seconds without his lower back cramping. You have to squeeze from the back of the legs. I did 10 of those lifts every evening. That is the armor that stops your knee from caving inward when you stand up. And that brings me to the fifth movement. This is the one that gave me my confidence back when I was turning or stepping sideways. I realized I was only strong walking in a perfectly straight line. I laid down on my side on the floor. I bent my bottom leg to keep my balance, and I kept my top leg perfectly straight. I slowly lifted that top leg up toward the ceiling. But the trick that changed everything was the angle. I had to lead with my heel. If you turn your toes up toward the ceiling, you just use the front of your hip. If you keep your foot flat and lead the lift with your heel, you activate the thick muscle right on the upper side of your hip. That specific muscle is the only thing stopping your knee from collapsing sideways when you take a step. I did 10 lifts on each side. It burned like crazy the first week, but it locked my knee into place like nothing else. It did not happen in a day. But about 3 weeks after that fall in the driveway, I was walking out of the hardware store carrying a 40-pound bag of topsoil. I stepped down off the curb into the parking lot without thinking about it. My right foot hit the asphalt. The knee did not buckle. It did not ache. It just caught my weight with solid, quiet strength. I walked all the way to my truck, standing completely straight. You do not have to accept a shrinking life just because your joints ache right now. You do not have to wait for the day your leg gives out on wet concrete. You can rebuild the armor around your knees. Start small. Sit on the floor tonight and just try to wake that thigh muscle up. I know it takes time, and I know it is frustrating when you feel weak. But doing nothing costs you your freedom. I am going to be right here, keeping my own armor strong.